One day, Angel is out and about, minding her business, when she gets a new message on Snapchat. Now, mind you, Angel is not her real name. This is just her Snapchat username. But she calls herself this because she thinks she's just the sweetest girl ever. Out of nowhere, her friend, that she's known for a couple weeks at this point, says to her, "Hey, Angel, I really like those videos you've been sending me. I mean, I like them a lot. How about you send me a slightly different type of video and I'll give you some money. In fact, I'll give you $9 million." And Angel said, "Well, what's the video?" Welcome back to another week, another Sinister. It's me, BOZE, your favorite Hot Topic employee. Look, not much has changed, but haven't seen you in a minute. If you've been listening to Sinister for a while, you know we took a little break for a couple months, had to figure some things out. I wanted to do things a little bit differently. But we're back. We're here. Sinister should still be around at least once or twice a month. Haven't quite figured that out yet, but it's still me, same writers, same editors. We are all back, not just to talk about these crazy cases and everything happened, but you probably know that the whole reason that I do Sinister is because I think these people are absolutely insane. They're crazy, but at one point they were normal people. So I like to see what happened to them, why they became what they are, so that if you notice any patterns in your life, you can look at yourself or look at the people around you and figure out if you are on the same path as them. Because look, I'm just of the belief that if we don't talk about it, if we sit here and say, "Oh, she was so normal," then we don't understand why people commit these crimes. And like, okay, let's get into this story today because she was not normal. Nothing is normal about this. This has got to be one of the craziest ones that I've heard in a minute. And y'all know I've heard some crazy stuff. Alexandria was originally born in Anchorage, Alaska. She lived with her mother, her mother's boyfriend, and then her 3 sisters. She had one sister named Bailey, and then she had 2 much younger siblings named Gabrielle and Corey. Now, the home was not normal at all. At all. The mother's boyfriend had some pretty serious anger issues, and he would inflict violence on her, the children, in front of the children, just anything. And I mean, these were like daily occurrences for the kids. But one of the worst situations and the most documented was what happened to her sister Gabrielle. This home is always chaotic. There is never a break for the children. There is no break for Denali, no break for her sisters, ever. Her mother's boyfriend was a shit show. He was a crazy person. And he didn't like that Gabrielle, one of the youngest, cried a lot. She's a literal baby that's being raised in chaos. And one day, while all of the daughters are home, he flips out and gets frustrated with the babies crying. And he threw Gabrielle to the floor and then started bashing Gabrielle's head into Corey's head, just violently hitting the children together. And it was so bad that Gabrielle died. But it was a big bloody mess. And when the mother came home, she found her daughters that were still alive hiding in the closet covered in blood. I just want to point out that we all know this. Kids witnessing violence at a very young age, especially gruesome, rageful violence, really messes you up. Now, you know that, and I know that, right? But the way that we tend to treat that in society is like, as adults, they're so uncomfortable that they don't like really know what to say to the kids when things like this happen. I can't tell you how often a child sees something violent and it kind of just gets glazed over because the adult is so uncomfortable. And look, I get it. The adult is going through something too in that moment. But like, bro, if something like that happens to a kid, like we need somebody to just come up there and be like, "Hey, what you just saw was not normal at all." I mean, we don't do that. We really don't fully do that. Like, we need to be saying, "That was not normal at all. That shit was crazy. I am so sorry that you had to see that," with a little emotion, some emphasis. Let them know it was wrong. Say, "That fool that did it is an insane person. We hate him. He's going to jail forever. Like, I mean, really spell this stuff out emphatically and let them know how terrible it was. Because if you do not, a child will get so confused by violence that they will explore it later in life. They will try to understand that thing that they saw that nobody talked to them about, and then they will explore it. That's my spiel on that. But, you know, what happened after this was the courts decided, obviously, like, there was a long history of this, and the mother was extremely abused, but they were like, she is in no position to care for her remaining daughters, and this fool's going to jail. So they ended up putting all of the kids in foster care. It took a couple years, but eventually at 7 years old, Alexandria had been adopted. And her new adopted parents, they knew her history, were unafraid, and they said, nope, she's coming home with us. But one little caveat, they wanted to change her name. They just felt like a new, fresh name and identity would help erase some of the pain in the past. Of course, it's not going to take away everything that happened in the home, but I do think in theory, this was an interesting idea. So they decided to name her Denali. I know you've been putting off your doctor's appointments. You know how I know? Because I'm projecting and I've been putting off my doctor's appointments, but you know what? I'm going to book them and so are you, and we're going to use ZocDoc. Why? Because it's easy. Can I also say ZocDoc has been out for like a while now, and we know that most people, I think, prefer to just boop, 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 you know, click a couple buttons and book their doctor's appointment online rather than calling and doing the whole song and dance. I'm surprised the doctors haven't rolled out a little online booking system. I don't really see that anymore. I still got to call. Anyways, that's my rant on it. But do you know what ZocDoc is? It's an app, or you can also use it as a website where all you got to do is hop in there, put in your zip code, select what insurance you have, and then you can find doctors in your area that have their appointments listed all right there. I mean, I've just always hated having to call and coordinate the schedule. I have a little phone anxiety or something. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. With ZocDoc, you're able to find new doctors. You can find appointments someday that are same day, next day, or just the following day. You don't have to wait months and weeks out. And it's just all listed conveniently right there on the website. And the best part is it's free for us. So look, if you just are having trouble making that appointment that you've needed to for a while, whether it's for something you're concerned about or whether it's just your annual physical, maybe you don't have a doctor anymore, you don't know who takes your insurance, I know, it's tough. This makes it a little bit easier. And in the very least, I really, really recommend, so you're familiar with the website and how it works, just go to ZocDoc.com, put in your insurance, put in your zip code, and I want you to see what's available and what's possible so when you need it, you know where to go. And like I said, it's totally free. So if you want to use my code in the description, just let them know where you came from. Go to ZocDoc.com or ZocDoc.com and use my little code. Do it for me. You don't have to, but if you want to. Denali Dakota Sky Brehmer. That was her name. And I mean, it is hopeful of her parents to hope that this takes away a little bit of the pain of the past, but maybe it will. Who knows? They were down to try anything. By all accounts, Denali's adoptive parents were actually quite nice to her. I mean, you can just tell through like a couple statements and things that the family later said that like they tried, you know? They were aware of the situation, what she had gone through, what it would take to really raise Denali, and they went for it. But unfortunately, her past was just a little bit too powerful because by adolescence, she had already kind of gone down a bit of a dark path. And I say a bit of a dark path, but actually it's a pretty dark path. She was doing meth, she was doing heroin, she was doing any type of hard drugs that she could get her hands on. With the drugs came addiction, and then shortly after came prostitution. From a pretty young age, Denali was trying to get drugs and essentially selling herself. And she was in such dangerous situations that she also ended up getting a gun. By 16 or 17 years old, she wasn't just doing the meth or heroin, she was cutting it up and selling it, distributing. Then at the age of 18, things get even worse. You're probably wondering, how could it possibly get worse? It does. Denali was assaulted and ends up pregnant from this assault. She seemed pretty hardened to this point, but this really, really broke her. It was a violent attack, and she just seemed to really spiral further afterwards. So around this time, Denali's life is in this complete free fall. But she ends up meeting somebody almost out of nowhere that is kind of like a light in the dark for her. His name was Tyler, and Tyler was a literal millionaire. I mean, Tyler was always traveling all over the world in his private jet, and he lived a couple states away. But when he had a little bit of free time, he wanted to talk to Denali. She was just cool like that. He was like her little millionaire friend. And also, she knows that he's real because he sent her a photo of himself. So they kind of connect on Snapchat and they start talking for a couple of weeks. It's really not long. I just want to mention this because I saw it alluded to in some interviews, but it was hard to find this information in the case file because this part is not exactly relevant to the actual crime. But it is my understanding that Denali was sending Tyler these, quote, fucked up videos from her stash. Now, I'm currently unaware if Denali recorded these videos herself, they were of minors, or if these were videos that she found from the internet. But in some interviews, she called it her stash and said that she had been sending Tyler a couple of things. Now, I think this is Denali's way of saying like, ooh, you're up too, you evil millionaire guy. Well, I'm just as fucked up. Here's what I got. So she had been sending him these things during these few weeks that they were talking. And so one day, rich best friend Tyler says, hey, I love all of this stuff. What do you say we make a deal? And Denali, who at this time is an addict, she has no fucking money. She doesn't really have anywhere to go. Like, she's extremely vulnerable. And he says to her, how about you make me a little video and I will give you $9 million. And also, my first thought is like, Denali, how did you think you were going to get the fucking money? Did you think he was going to Venmo you $9 million? Did you think the IRS wasn't going to have any questions about this? Also, $9 million. $9 million? I'm sorry. I have thoughts. Now, those are my, just general question mark human thoughts. And maybe Denali wanted to believe that this price was so high because what he wanted in the video was horrific, and she knew it. So she decided to recruit a few people to help her out, because what Denali needed to do in order to get the $9 million was to find a victim. And Tyler told her it can be anyone of her choice. Anybody. Find a victim, and he asked her to rape and torture and murder this person and then send him a video of it. And then she would get her money. Once he explained to her what he wanted, her first question was, anybody? Anybody that I want? And he's like, yeah, anybody. And she's like, cool, it's a deal. This is where Cece Hoffman comes in. Cece was born October 8th, 1999 in Anchorage, Alaska. Her life was a lot different than Denali's, but somehow later on, they still became friends. Cece was the daughter of Timothy and Barbara Hoffman. Her family ran like a concrete and handyman business, and there were often a lot of hardships over the years. And this is a pretty big family, okay? She's got 4 half-siblings. But I think the hardships kind of bonded them, and they all got a bit closer over time. One thing about Cynthia, or Cece, that made life a little bit difficult for her was her learning disability. Despite her age, they said that she had the cognitive function of about a 12-year-old child. And, she had this real innocence about her, just very sweet, very vibrant, and fun-loving. She just really wanted to have a good time. But in order to have a good time, you still got to make it through society. So Cece graduated from high school, and then afterwards, she got a job. She actually worked at Red Robin, and then she worked at a Denny's. Dude, she was in there. She said, I'm working, I'm getting paid, and we're going to go hang out and do whatever. Now, remember I said that she was close with her siblings? Well, her dad still had like an operation in this job site that a lot of the kids were working. So then after Red Robin and Denny's, Cece went over and she worked with them at the construction site. She was like measuring windows. She was turning concrete. She was out here. She was working. She said, nothing's going to stop me. She had an Instagram account. And one of the captions on her Instagram, I need you to picture this because it was actually written in all capital letters, okay? It said, I love hanging out with friends and going out and going shopping. I know in true crime cases, they always say, oh, the victim was so sweet. The victim lit up a room, blah, 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 blah. Like, tell me that you can't hear all those details and know that Cece was like legitimately a sweetheart. She was the host at, the restaurant that you work at that seats you. She was, the person turning the concrete so she could get off and hang out with her friends. She just wants to go shopping. Like, she's just here trying to get through life like all of us. Denali decided to set her sights on Cece because, 1, they were friends. 2, she trusted her. And 3, she had some cognitive disabilities that made Denali think that it would be easier to manipulate her into going along with the plan. Oh, and to top it all off, they had some issues over a boy. They liked the same boy at one point, and Denali decided to sleep with him, and Cynthia didn't like that. It made her sad. She wasn't rocking with it. And so Denali was like, okay, you're the perfect victim for my video that's going to get me $9 million. And that line of thinking just sounds delusional, saying it out loud. But that was Denali's actual line of thinking. So on Sunday, June 2nd, Cece had planned to go get this money from her dad. It was like a reward for helping him prepare a camper. She told her dad that she was on her way to pick up the money, and then she just never arrived. He kind of waits it through the night. This is pretty abnormal for her. I would even argue this is pretty abnormal for anybody to say, hey, I'm on my way to go get the money that you said you were going to give to me. And then for them to just not show up with no explanation. Like, dude, if it's $20, $40, like, I will be there. And her dad's kind of patient for a minute. Like, she's got some crazy friends. Like, maybe she's out and about. But, like, by the next day, by June 3rd, like, this was just completely abnormal. So on this day, Cynthia's father reports her to the police as missing. And they show up and they start just questioning everybody. Where did you last see her? What do you know? Like, the dad says what she was wearing that day, just blue jeans, a hoodie, some shoes. Last I heard that she was at the Polar Bear Playground at Russian Jack Springs Park in East Anchorage. And they were like, how do you know that that's where she was at? Well, then this is when the sister comes in with a little bit of interesting information. The day prior to that, on June 2nd, Denali had texted the sister saying, I don't know where Cece is. Where is Cece? I think she might be lost. And at the time, the sister doesn't really think that much of it. Like, she didn't know about the fight over the guy that Denali and Cece had. Like, she just thought that this was a friend that was a little concerned for her whereabouts. But also, we that watch a bit of true crime know that this is the typical send a text like you don't know anything kind of thing. But now that she's like actually missing and the police are here, the sister is like, hold on, this is a little bit weird. And what's crazy about this is Denali's little plan here to act like, I don't know anything, I was worried too, completely backfires on her because her text message is the exact reason why they were able to get a search warrant for Denali's phone and just check everything. That message is exactly why. But before they even get a chance to find out what was on her phone, they end up finding Cece's body the next day on June 4th in a creek. And Cece had her legs tied together and she had been shot in the back of the head. So after they find Cece's body, the detectives, rightfully so, are just fully fucking locked in. And I just want to mention for a second, for anybody that's like new to Sinister or just coming back and you forgot that like I talk like this during a true crime case, it's because I'm mad about shit, man. And if somebody was talking about my case, I want them to be mad for me too. I'm not going to sit here and just be like delicate and over certain details. Like, this shit is messed up. And rightfully so. The detectives were like, who the shoots a girl with a learning disability and lures her into the woods, into a creek, and then shoots her in the back of the head? Like, this is a sick and we need to figure out who it is, because this type of person, if they get away with it, they're probably going to do something like this again. So they start tracing every phone call, every text message. I mean, this is in 2019. And so everybody's phone is getting connected. And the family turned their phones over real quick. They were like, yeah, take us out of this. We have no idea what's going on. And for their phones, everything showed up clean as a whistle. Okay? Clean. Now, Denali's phone, we'll get to everything on there, but I don't know if you guys realize the forensic technology that they have on cell phones now is crazy. They can find every keystroke, every deleted message, every former password, login, anything that you have ever typed into that phone. They can literally just extract and double the phone and start clicking around and seeing everything. Little Snapchat messages that are gone, Instagram things you deleted. Girl, they can see the keystrokes, okay? Like, they can just replicate the screen. 2019 in criminal cases is just really the sweet spot of like, really? Did you think that they weren't going to go through your phone? In 2010, people were typing all types of crazy shit because they didn't think anybody would ever see it. They didn't know that even your emails are going to live forever, right? 2019, this is like fairly recent. Denali was just doing anything and everything on this phone, taking videos, sending videos, saying dumb shit, recruiting the extra people into okay, I'll get to that. So, like I said, Denali was not the only person involved here. So they are looking through the phones and they realize one of the first lies is they never went to Polar Bear Playground. That was where Denali said that she dropped her off. That's where the dad said, I think that's where she was last seen, because he believed her, right? But they were able to tell they never went there. Instead, they had driven 32 kilometers north of Anchorage to a place called Thunderbird Falls. And also, Denali was not alone. She had brought along this 16-year-old with her named Caden McIntosh. Then Caden gets brought in for questioning. So through the investigation, the police were kind of able to determine that this 16-year-old kid named Caden was actually the one that shot Cynthia in the back of the head and then pushed her over into the water. But then Caden had a completely different story. He admitted to being an accomplice, but he said it was actually all Denali's idea and that she had actually brought the gun. And then she told him to do it. So now they bring Denali back in, and her story's just falling apart at this time because she's already lied to the family. They knew the playground thing wasn't true. Caden's already started talking. And so Denali panics, and she's like, okay, I did know about the murder. I was there. I was there when Caden did it. But I was only there because he scared me, and I was afraid. And I felt like I had to go along with what he said. When she brought the gun, she brought the gun. They already know this at this point, but that's her new story. And that alone is enough to arrest her. So just days after Cece had gone missing on June 9th, 2019, Denali was arrested. And then finally, the whole plot starts to come undone. So the prosecutors start to put all the pieces together and they realize there is so much more to this story because at face value, it does seem like Denali and Caden just like did it. And the why, maybe they're a couple of sick fucks. But as soon as they got into that phone, there was a lot more information. So first, they find out that there were actually 5 teenagers involved in Cece's murder, 2 of which were minors outside of Caden, so they ended up being nameless. Well, they weren't just minors, they were like juveniles, like they were like very young. And then all 5 of these kids were supposed to take a cut of the $9 million reward. I still cannot get over not 9 million. 9 million. Like, what? One of them was this kid named Caleb Leyland. And Caleb actually participated in helping put the plan together. And then he also gave Caden and Denali the SUV that they picked Cynthia up in. Like he basically like loaned them a vehicle. So that video was supposed to take them to this like hike near Thunderbird Falls. They actually lied to Cece by telling her like, hey, we're going to pick you up and we're going to go, I don't know, climb this fucking mountain. And then we're going to go up there and we're just all going to hang out. And then, Cece, who probably like feels like she's on the rocks with her homie because they were fighting over a guy. But then like you have that moment where you're like, no, this is my friend. Like this, like we're not going to get into it over a guy. Like let's make up. Let's go hang out. Denali completely taking advantage of this, picks her up in that SUV with the other guys. And then when they get up to like this mountain hiking area or whatever, she tells Cece, and Cece believed this. She tells her, hey, we're all going to like tie ourselves up and take pictures. And Cece's like, okay. And they're like, we're going to do you first. So they bind her up with duct tape and they start taking pictures of her to send to Tyler, the millionaire. Now, only these kids know what actually happened and what was actually said on top of the mountain. But this is kind of a mix of their version of events. So they claim that Denali was the one that actually taped up Cece's legs and her wrists. And then she put a gray piece of tape over her mouth too. And at first, Cynthia is like, oh, like this is what we're doing. Like we're just taking pictures. But nobody else got tied up and they never took the tape off of her. And so by their accounts, they said that eventually she starts getting mad and they take the tape off of her mouth and they claim that she started threatening them. What I find interesting, this is what Kaden actually said, was she claimed that she was going to call the police and report that she had been kidnapped and sexually assaulted. He said that. He included that. So maybe they're not being fully honest with everything that, I'm just going to say it, they did or took videos of or whatever up there. But that is what he said. And then he claims, take everything he says with a grain of salt. He then claims that he blacked out after she said that her saying she was going to call the police was so jarring that Kaden claims that he blacked out. And then because she was, quote, threatening them, he freaked out and shot her in the back of the head and then pushed her over. And he described her body as still twitching. So after that, they drove back down and they went to the park and they called Cynthia's family or sent a text message where they said, oh my God, where is she? This is so terrible. We don't know what's happening. They send that message off and then they drive to another park and they burn all of her clothes, her purse, cell phone, and they try to burn the weapon that they used to kill her. Based on this confession, the detectives were able to charge them that day with murder and tampering with evidence. Their bail was set at $200,000 each. When Caleb was in his arraignment, he kind of seemed dazed, seemed out of it. It's kind of unknown whether he just couldn't believe that this was actually happening or if he was faking it to try to get a little bit of sympathy. But as this trial went on, more details came out about Caleb and his history. Remember, this kid is 16 years old. They found out that he had sexually assaulted a juvenile girl that was somewhat connected to the case. Like they found this out by diving into what happened to Cece. And then afterwards, it was so severe that this splits off into him getting further charges of first-degree sexual assault and then second-degree sexual abuse of a minor. So, remember what I said? I don't know what all they did to Cece on that mountain, but this is who he is. They're still trying to figure out why did they feel the need to kill Cynthia? Because at this point, they don't fully understand or have a lot of information about the Tyler, thread of it all. This is like the detectives that are interrogating these two kids because everything happened pretty quickly over the course of a couple of days. When they talked to the family and they tried to get a little more information on Denali and her history with Cece, they found out that the girls had been friends for 6 months. 6 months. One of the family members, like one of the uncles, was saying when he met Denali, he knew that they were bad news, but Cece didn't have many friends and she liked her and the family just kind of let it be. They didn't know that much about Denali and they felt like, how harmful can this kid possibly be? So throughout all of this, they're, interrogating Denali, they're talking to the 16-year-old kid, Caleb, they're talking to the family, They're speaking to everyone that knows them. You know, these are usually kind of like different units. They're putting all the pieces together. And then finally, digital forensics comes in and they're like, hey, we have a little information. It seems like Denali might have been catfished on Snapchat by this other kid. Tyler, the millionaire, was actually Darren Mitchell Schillmiller. He was an unemployed 18-year-old living in his grandparents' basement, not a world-traveling millionaire as he had so easily convinced Denali that he was. He had created this kind of fake identity, and it didn't work on most people until it worked on Denali. I mean, in 3 weeks, she just believed that she was talking to this millionaire on Snapchat. So they're able to recover a lot of the messages and find out about the whole plan that all of these kids were going to receive some type of share of Darren's reward for the role in the killing. And in return, Denali had to send videos and photos of Cece's body. And we're going to make it even worse. I just want to say, before I mention this, it is about to get exponentially worse, but I'm going to say it very quickly so that you know what happened, and then we're going to keep it rolling here. But I need you to know exactly who this girl is. Despite her horrific background, there were a lot of choices made in Denali's life, and then I actually have another comment about that came from the family. But here's the thing. When they went through Tyler's phone, they also found out that in those short 3 weeks that he knew Denali, he had convinced her to also send him videos of her assaulting minor girls that were between the ages of 8 and 15. And she did it. She did it, and she took photos and videos that she kept for herself and then also sent to him. So he was also brought in for federal child porn charges. So these two people are just both very, very sick. After his arrest, 3 more women came forward that were outside of Alaska because, remember, he had tried this trick on a couple of other people. 2 of the women were from Indiana, and then 1 was from California, and all 3 of them were young mothers. This guy had messaged these seemingly single moms on this app called Meet Me, and he told them, hey, I'll give you money if you send me pictures of your children. And all of their kids were between 4 months and 2 years old. And he originally said, hey, just send me a couple videos of you changing their diapers. And these women said, what the fuck? Another woman said that one of his tactics was saying that he needed help to get over this sick fetish that he had. And the women were really concerned because initially they said that they didn't really know where to report this, but we'll give them some grace because they came forward as soon as, you know, this kind of broke, or maybe they were contacted and they were like, here's everything. I didn't know who to tell. So look, all throughout this trial, they were initially focused on Cece's murder, but now Caden's going to jail. Tyler, Darren, whatever the fuck his name is, he's going to jail. Denali's getting extra charges for this. Oh, they said, wrap it up. We got everything. During the trial, Cynthia's family came and they made victim impact statements. Victim impact statements are incredibly powerful, guys. They are really, really powerful because through the entire process of court, everything's very clinical. It's very factual. It's very, by the book. And there's rules, right? As it should be to get a fair trial. But we eventually get the moment where you see how it actually affected these family members that have just been standing silently in the courtroom for weeks. Victim impact statements are so powerful that I used to watch them more when I would cover court cases and go through the trials and stuff. And I don't even watch victim impact statements anymore in videos because that is the moment for the family members to let the fucking jury know how they feel and how this has affected them. It's very personal. But there is one detail from this that I have to tell you, and it's that Cynthia's dad, Timothy Hoffman, when he made his statement, he had to attend court with his emotional support dog, a Chihuahua named Bruiser, and hold him while he gave his statement. Ah! After that, the district attorney went on to say in his closing, Denali executed Cynthia Hoffman in a murder for hire plot. She conspired with numerous other individuals in and outside of Alaska, including juveniles, forever altering everybody's life. She may not have pulled the trigger, but this never would have happened if it were not for Denali Brehmer. It's crazy that this all just happened over Snapchat, but the judge in this case actually said that this was one of the most serious first-degree murder cases and one of the most severe contract killings in the state's history. Because it was. Sure, these are some drug addict kids that are on Snapchat trying to make a quick $9 million. But they're right. This was an operation that was happening outside of the state, entered Alaska, involved pedophilia, snuff, like films, photography. This is pretty fucking brutal for some kids to come up with and just be down for. So Denali and Darren end up getting 99 years in prison for the murder aspect of the crime. They received additional charges for their other crimes. Another thing that I found interesting, they have this in certain states. They actually designated him, quote, a worst offender, which essentially means that he cannot even petition for parole until 45 years in. But even then, they would consider him a danger to society and that he should not be let out. And yes, that is correct. You can just look at certain people's patterns and know that there is no chance for rehabilitation. He did this when he was in his early 20s. When he got sentenced, he was 25. No, keep him away from a computer. Keep him away from children. Keep him away from everybody. Everybody. So Denali also gets 99 years. The kid that loaned them the SUV, he gets 30 years. The kid that pulled the trigger, he ends up getting 70 years in prison with some additional charges as well. And then one thing that I found quite interesting was Denali actually did an interview on Court TV. It was called Interview with the Killer, where she tries to not take any accountability for the murders at first until the host really pushes her. And it's like, you're lying. Like, why are you saying this? Why are you doing this? And slowly she starts to say, yeah, well, I did. You know, she kind of starts to confess a little bit more. And then when he asks her, like, you know, why? Like, how are you feeling? And she's like, well, I mean, I want to get out of here eventually. I want to appeal. You want to appeal? You want to appeal? Can we stop wasting the public defender tax dollars? You're not leaving. You're not leaving. Like, what is the goal? I need to look into this. Can we stop wasting tax dollars on certain people? Can we get more worst offender labels so that you don't even try? And look, I get it. BOZE, you're not allowed to say that. The court system is supposed to be just. You're allowed to. This is why I say I shouldn't be on a jury. I don't give a lock her up forever. But I digress. That's real me. That's real BOZE. I return to Sinister host BOZE, which says Denali had an early life of chaos, trauma that she probably felt like she could only numb out with drugs. This is why I also gave my little spiel in the beginning of, tell kids that was crazy. I mean, like, really, like, let them know, man. And she, grew up to explore violence and do this too. I can't even do it. I can't even do that. She's a monster, and she had multiple chances to make different choices. And you know what? If you don't believe me, this is the part that I think is really, really, really wild. Denali's own sisters, who also were hiding in that closet with her, covered in blood, they said, we don't understand why our sister did this. She made choices. She made those choices herself because we went through the same things, and we would never and have never done anything like that.